brought it in.
You're just.
Oh, okay,
debriefing.
well, they were just like notes to myself, cause I'm like, we're gonna discuss that.
Probably.
Big L's.
It's fine.
Did you guys? Classes are like 7:55. Yep.
Yep. You hate to see it.
That's the
And the good thing though is that the, foundation you can get is, online now, so.
Yes, yeah, but. Still have to like be on campus.
Oh, yeah.
Which one are you taking Wednesday or Monday?
Let's see, I haven't looked at that. Should we have stuff going on the board?
Yes, we should.
Hop up, get with it. Stuff on the board, please.
The intention is there.
I hear you.
All right, well,
Let's start, fill up the backboards first, please.
all right.
Which one are
Then
you?
we
I'm
can fill
doing-
these
I'm
if
doing
we need to.
or C again.
Well, I wanna do C.
I want to do C. All right.
Well, I'll do B.
But.
What if I want to do B?
Oh, wait, I don't
Colin,
have
you
a
can put your example up there
marker.
too, and I'll do your one.
All right,
Do you have a marker on this?
Oh.
it's okay, I got you.
Colin has it in his fanny.
Wait, Collins, are you doing C?
Huh?
Are you doing C?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. My phone is slow. Phone is with me. Taking it.
Want me to draw it for you?
No.
Come on, Colin, I know you can do this.
Okay, I'm just looking back now.
I usually have.
Boy, we've got a thin crowd this morning.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3,
We have
4, 5,
seven.
6, 7. That's at least 5 people, 6 people missing.
6 people, yeah.
Wow.
One of the biggest
We have
people.
Shelley and Chandra on Zoom.
Okay, so that's only 4 people
Well,
missing.
Shelley's from Wednesday's class.
Not,
Ah.
black and silly.
So now we have,
Oh.
Hello.
Okay, one more, we're gaining on it. Maybe as we draw near to the end of the session, we might take a little note of who.
yeah, I might start doing that.
Just seems like, I hate to have to be in that mode, but here we are.
What?
Yep, that's true.
Permission to work.
You know me, I would never be in that mode if I could get away with it.
Yeah.
I thought it was. Yeah. Melodic.
The lick but's in major.
I love the purple marker, that's good.
Technically it is in major, just starts in a second.
Anybody else need a marker? Hello, out there? Anybody else want to participate and put some work on the board, please?
Liam wants to participate.
I want to participate.
You want to?
Yeah.
Come right on up
Alright.
and do it, please.
The Taco Bell combination.
Do you have a preference as to which one, right up here?
Which one?
You.
Well, let's see, we've got A and B, and, which one are you writing?
Colin has C, I think.
Colin is doing C.
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
it's okay, we can have.
Well, you
both
choose
these.
then.
Alright.
I'm gonna go back my C on there.
supposed to turn nasty cold tonight, is that,
No.
was that the weather report?
Yes, it is, but I'm not looking forward to it. I hate
Well, at
cold.
least we've had a few more days of warmer.
Yeah, I was like, oh, please come back, stay.
I'm so ready for it to be brisk outside. No.
I can't find my jackets.
Oh, like the iced tea?
I moved last semester and lost all my jackets. I don't know where I put them.
For $1.
This was $1 jacket.
You want
I'm
to,
so
you
excited
want
for
to
it
put
be
something
here.
on the board?
Next time.
Say,
Next time?
well, the next time will be, on the sixth, yes, we have exercise, 27.2, so, yes.
I'll remember that.
Take
We're doing
a,
it.
Ellie, take a mental note, she's
Yep.
promised.
I have promised.
No.
No, literally, I was like in this house last night and I was walking into his bedroom and I was just like smiling for no reason. He's like, "Are you smiling at me?" I would just, I just want to. It's yeah, I need to take it in this weekend and get it actually like, because he thought he got it sized properly, but they didn't do it. So I need to take it in.
Not excited to try and make it to band in 20 minutes. Well, I have Adrian in here. I just, like, if we get out late, I'm like, stressful.
Speed run.
Speed.
It's okay, let's do the longest
No,
one.
I'm so glad they have cross parking.
I'm Sarah. What do you use to clean like the tops of these? Like the pad, like not the pads, but like the.
Yeah, honestly, so when I was like using Q-tips to get underneath it to clean my bathroom earlier this morning, that's the first time I've done
Hello,
that.
Wednesday people.
That's like a solution now.
We're finishing getting stuff up on the board,
Really
and
hard, like,
we'll be right with you.
Yes, I don't know how to get rid of that. I really don't. You could use a polishing cloth, usually that's better at like doing that, especially if it's like on the neck.
Yeah, this isn't gonna take that off.
No?
It's like built up stuff.
Is it?
It's on like one of the keys. I'll
Which
show you.
key?
I have it.
Yes, please show me.
Okay, you can look at it while you're on.
No.
What's the name? In the corner with the orange hat.
I can't remember.
Some people are, that's what I do next. I was on Planet.
Hey, Mr. Orange Hat in the corner,
See that?
Yeah.
you wanna get in on this board action? Not, you.
Oh, no.
Oh.
Oh.
Hamburger.
Oh, hamburger.
How is this orange? So how did it, it wasn't like russet.
Looks orange to me from
Yeah,
here.
it's
close. It's close.
Yeah, but.
You wanna get in on some board action, put something up?
Yeah, I only have A,
Stuff
but
that
I
makes
can
it
do
shiny.
it.
Good.
Impossibly light frosted.
Come on, there's a blank spot on the board right over here.
Hamburger.
I would just take it to work my first time.
Yeah, I did take it to a guy, but he didn't say anything about it, so.
Yeah, but they don't fix that stuff, like the cosmetic stuff, unless you ask them to.
Where? Anywhere?
You can put it right there.
Yeah, but you can always like get a, you said, some hot water and just like gently.
Hot water?
Yeah, just like
Water
that
on
much.
the
Okay.
And if you have water on the sack, then you have to make sure you don't like.
That was like completely
get
dry.
pads with it,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Cause the pads will,
Okay.
get water on.
Yeah, you're supposed to wash it, right?
I make sure the
Saxophone
power, I make sure the
ready,
power
yeah.
wash all my saxophones.
You know, I'm a brass player. Do you just like put a saxophone in the back, like a French horn or something?
Try it and
Do
find
we
out.
have
You know,
anybody,
I just like
a
pop over
contact
the fire
person to
hydrant,
email
I just go
to
through
say we
that
need a
noise
new
and power
roll of
wash my
paper towel in
saxophones.
this room?
This
Keeps
saxophone
it
that I'm very
clean.
slowly turning into a lamp.
I will check. I think that's
It's a
Jen.
terrible
Yeah,
saxophones.
'cause I had to go next door to get some more, just
Like an
to
alto?
be sure we had enough,
I have-
so.
I have
It's not
like-
even playable.
I have like a broken tenor in my closet. I've been trying to convert it to a lamp for like the longest time.
Yeah.
Like a sconce where you put like the light in the
Oh,
washer.
That's what I was
I
saying.
can see my
Like mount
purple
on the
marker.
wall.
But I took the whole thing
I know,
apart
I
and
like
it's
it.
gross, so I stuck it in the bath with like soap
Jen Myers has
after
a
the
really
cheese
cute.
wrap of it, and then I
It's
got
so
sandpaper and
Yeah, it's in our office.
I just ended up going to
I
his
like
office.
stripped the varnish off of it and
Yeah.
then I stuck it around the surround, all like old looking and pretty.
Emily.
I like it.
No, I love Jen. She's my favorite.
All the issue is Emily, I'm simply private.
I don't know why, like, every time I leave this class, I'm like, make like a mental note to like buy dry erase markers, and then I never remember,
Me too.
ever.
That was me for the longest time.
It's like every time I go to the store, I'm like, buy white pepper, and then I never buy it. And then, yeah, because it's the best. It really is, like, you'll never use black pepper again.
It's working. Sorry. I'm uploading pictures to the
Oh.
live Zoom feed.
Oh, good.
And people finish theirs,
Forgot my double bar line and it's gonna annoy me.
Oh, well, let's not have annoyance if we can avoid it.
Ah, cha-cha.
Hi, cha-cha.
I'm glad that it's in two different colors.
That's not that.
I had to use my purple.
Gotta get it in
Purple
there.
is my favorite color.
Okay, we're coming up down the homeward stretch here.
So congrats. That is what it is.
Okay, so, let's start with 26.4. We had two analysis, Roman numeral analysis examples in your workbook. So let's listen to those. These look like, let's see, they're both excerpts, I think, from the Beethoven-Waldstein Sonata, yes. All right, so here we go. This is the first one. So this is a sonata in C major. So first two bars, primarily, what Roman numeral? One, except for the last beat, which is,
Five of five.
yes, it's a 5 of 5, and in what inversion do we find it? 5, 4, 2 of 5, so. All right. Then we have 5, 6 for a bar, and keeping on another bar of 5, 6. Then where do we get this B flat? Well, well, it's a flat major 7. But, you know, there's also another way to look at that. You can look at this as a little key layer in flat major 7, which would then put that as 1, and then a 5 of 5 to 5. So if we look at this, folks, as having sequential relationship to the opening, if we're in C major, at the opening we have 1, then 5 of 5 to 5, 6. And if we look at this, this is just really, we've just moved sequentially to B flat. And if we're thinking in a B flat that? See how that works?
So it's like 1 of flat 7?
Yes, it's 1 of flat 7 to 5, 5 of flat 7 to 5, 6. And it just makes some sense. You know, we can do a series of Roman numerals, and in a way, it can just roll right on. If you did flat major 7, then 5, 4, 2 of 4, and then 4, 6. And then we go into a minor 4, 6. And then we're nice and comfortably back in C major, yes? This is like 5, 7, 4, 5, 7, 4, 5, 7, 4, 5, 7. And then 1 to there. So do you understand how I'm specifically talking now about bars 5, 6, and 7? How that is sequentially exactly the same as bars 1, 2, and 3. You know, 1, 2, and 3 are on a layer of C major, which is the key of the sonata, and then we make this little movement down to flat 7. It's kind of an interesting effect. Listen to it again, how that hits the ear. I'm paranoid. I have a 16-year-old student who is playing this sonata, you know, like Horowitz. Really playing well, so I feel like I can't play it anymore. Interesting effect, isn't it, to the ear? The first, the second, but we hear that so often in a piece of music. We hear an harmonic pattern, and then we hear sequentially at some other interval, we hear the same harmonic pattern. So, you know, if you've ever wondered, and perhaps, you know, in another class you've listened to this sonata, it's pretty famous and ends up getting used in a lot of examples. But I think really it's interesting because it's like Beethoven expanding the limits. You'll also find, if you go on in this particular sonata, that your second key area, instead of going somewhere, I think, sort of familiar, you end up in A major and E major. And so you end up these medians away, and that's Beethoven just, you know, pushing the walls out a little bit and giving us a broader perspective. Does that make sense? And then when you think about recapitulation, which we're not really focusing on that in this course at the moment, but you think about recapitulation where you are changing keys again to harmonize with the resolution of tonal conflict, then you get some of those relationships that have meaning through that, like A instead of A, you're in E, and anyway. Everyone look at, did that register? Hello over there on the end of the room, that registered what I said? Yes,
I'm doing the seating survey.
Say what?
I'm doing the seating survey.
I didn't understand a word you
He's
said.
doing the seating survey.
Oh,
Oh, yeah,
thank you.
sorry. Seating survey.
Thank you.
That's good.
Good job, Paul.
I hadn't realized till everybody had a mask on how much I probably have some lip reading skill too.
I think everybody has a little bit of that.
But boy, when it's completely blocked and you're speaking through a piece of cloth, excuse me. it's sometimes very difficult to understand. So are we all on the same page about how to do the Roman numeral analysis of this? Yeah, to me, a flat major 7 is a chord that is unusual. And usually I'm trying to find a way to make a flat major 7 into a dominant, secondary dominant. But here is a really interesting and good example of a flat major 7 as a key layer. And you could just do the Roman numerals all in C major, which would put the flat major 7 as the Roman numeral for the B flat chord. But if you really want to make it make harmonic sense in a context, reflecting the idea that it's a sequence of the first 3 bars, now at the B flat level instead of the C major level, I think that is elegant and makes a lot of sense and really allows the Roman numeral analysis to be very expressive of what's happening in the piece. You know, to just kind of out of the blue say, oh yeah, it's a flat major 7, and then it goes to 4, and then it goes to, you know, and to me, or then it goes to 5 of 4, then it goes to 4. To me, that doesn't say what really is happening. That does not express the harmonic sequence that has happened in that particular spot. And so I'm an advocate of Roman numeral analysis expressing of as much a function as possible. And I believe expressing that layer and showing that it's a sequence of the first 3 bars is a more expressive interpretation of the Roman numerals.
So how would you label that?
Okay, I would label that, I would label the B flat as 1, and then the end of it, just like your opening bars, 1, and at the end of that, 5, 4, 2 of 5 to 5, but then you need to put all of that, a line under all of that, and put flat major 7 under that.
You mean 5, 4, 2 of 4, right?
No, I mean a 5, 4, 2 of 5. I'm talking about expressing this in B flat. We go for a few bars expressing it as if it were in B flat major. And the way you do that is Roman numeral, Roman numeral, Roman numeral, and then one great big long line, all of that over flat major 7. In other words, that's our system for expressing a key layer. This is a temporary key layer in B flat major. But the way to relate B flat major to C major, the original key of the sonata, is to call that key area flat major 7. Katie, does that make sense now?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Wednesday people, you got that? Okay, moving right along.
One person said mostly.
Mostly. Well, look at what I just said. You can review that on Blackboard, and if you still have a question, I better hear that question next Wednesday.
Okay,
Oh.
I think my frustration about all of this is that, like, I understand it when you explain it, but I feel like if I were given this on a test, I wouldn't be able to figure it out that way, like, on my own.
Okay, so this is where working strategy comes in. If you were to encounter something like this on a test, there's kind of a list of questions you could be asking yourself. You can say, does that make sense literally? Well, I can put Roman numerals that all still stay in C major. I can put them down, but, you know, is there another way that this could be a key layer? All of a sudden you get B flats in there, which would say, all right, there's not normally a B flat in C major. So could this be a key layer? That should be one of the questions you could be asking yourself. Does that make sense? It's like kind of like having that secondary dominant flag up there when you see an accidental you go, oh, is that a leading tone to something? And this is a similar kind of thing. And especially if you use your ear, the ear's got to come into this. If you, there's a harmonic progression. And then you hear, it's like we just shift down a whole step. So we had and so you can say, that progression sounds the same, but now it's translated to B, or it's, transposed to B flat major. That is, so you gotta use your ear. That's where the skill of audiation, and that's why in an exam situation, I'd probably be playing this, half a dozen times for the class. But you gotta really watch the score and think, what does my ear also tell me? I can see those literal notes on the page, and they're unusual, and they produce, if I stay in C major, they produce unusual and unexpected Roman numerals. So if you have a case where you're like, how often do we have flat major 7 in C major? Not very often. And so if that's what you're turning up, then your next question should be, is this a key layer? Is there a harmonic progression that's going the same way as what I just heard, which in fact is the case here? And so other than just saying, you have to be open to some possibilities. And the other thing that we are getting to the point of having to be open to as we move through Neapolitan's augmented 6 chords and the end of the semester, you have to also be willing to think enharmonically. You have to just not take everything literally as what it is. If you're in a key, for example, if you are in the key of A flat, and suddenly you see a whole section of the piece go in E major, what should be one of the things that you might think about? A flat, and then you see a whole section go in E major. What is E? What is that tone in terms of the key of A flat? Flat? Flat 6. So it's possible you could have a whole little section of a piece be in flat 6, but the composer writes it in E major instead of making you read the key of F flat. Reading the key of F flat is a little trickier, and so it goes a little smoother if that's expressed in E major. But what it really is in relationship to A flat is it's a whole section in F flat.
So you see the E flat, or the E is the leading tone to F. I'm just trying to figure out how that would be flat 6.
So it's an enharmonic thing now. Flat 6 in A flat major is F flat.
Oh yeah, okay, I was thinking.
And then E is enharmonic to F flat.
Okay.
I've got, and I apologize if I'm repeating myself in here, but I've got a whole bunch of different editions of the piano works of Chopin on the shelf in my office, and it's amazing that sometimes different publishers put different sections of those Chopin pieces in different keys. Instead of having a whole section in F flat, they would have it in E, or there may be some other way that they've changed it enharmonically to make it easier to read. So we're quickly coming to a point where you cannot take the notes that you see in front of you as the only way it can be seen. It's like you have to have a little list of checkpoint questions. Could this be written enharmonically? If I write this enharmonically, does this relate better to the key that I'm in? Well, that would be if you had A flat major and then a section of E major, the answer to that question would be yes. It would, F flat major would relate way more easily to A flat major than E major. Did everybody track with me on that? Yes? Yeah. It just becomes you can't take stuff. You've had 2 semesters of theory to this point where pretty much every single thing you've done can be taken at face value. That's the way the pedagogy has been, the way the exercises, the way the examples. There hasn't been anything tricky or ambiguous. But now you gotta kind of just start formulating this list of checkpoint questions. So if you see a B flat major chord, all of a sudden in a C major piece, you gotta go, let's see, flat major 7, that's not common. That's not a regular diatonic or even, I mean, it's if we say it's a chromatic chord in a key, yeah, it's really a chromatic chord. It's out there on the periphery. And so that should trigger a little checkpoint question like, can that be something else? Did we go to a key layer? How does that relate? And then your ear can tell you that, let me get those bar numbers again, hang on. Your ear can tell you that bars 5, 6, and 7 are exactly the same as bars 1, 2, and 3. They're just in B flat. And so it's like we get to this whole issue of modulation, tonicization, but this is the classic case of key layer. And that key layer just happens to be a sequence of 1, 2, and 3. 5, 6, and 7 are just identical to 1, 2, and 3, except they're in B flat. Did everybody go with me on that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, take a look at who the composer is. You're not likely to find, this so much with many composers. But if you got Beethoven on the docks here, just look for tricks and turns. That's the way the guy is historically, which you may already know from your Music 100. The guy's a transition point. He's a pivot point. He's introducing, he's leaving the classical strictures and, kind of pushing out the walls. And so you see it harmonically. And so whenever, you can also kind of keep yourself on target by just taking note of who the composer is and what the historical placement of the excerpt or the example, the piece is, and figure that this is a lot more common in Beethoven than Mozart. You're not likely to see this kind of thing in Mozart, but you will easily see this kind of thing going on in Beethoven. And then as we move to Mendelssohn, Schubert, Chopin, Schumann, then we're going to really start seeing some stuff, and mostly the harmonic things that we see in those composers have mediant relationships, chromatic mediants. So if you're in C, it would not be at all uncommon to see something in E, or something in A flat, because those mediant shifts are just the stock and trade of Chopin, Mendelssohn, Schubert, Schumann. You see it everywhere. And hopefully before the end of the semester we'll get some good examples and be able to point that out to you. Okay, let's finish B. So we're now on page 318. And then what have we got going here? Interesting. And then we've got, so we've got things going. If we're trying to think in C major, you could put all of this as 5, 2 minor, 1. And then what would this note be in C?
Flat 6.
Flat 6. But flat 6 is also 5 of what? A flat is the dominant of what note?
D flat.
Of D flat. Okay, so it's a possible way of saying, okay, well then we've got flat 2. And, you know, we've got, then we got this flat 7 business again. But the way I look at this, flat 6 is the fermata becomes 5 of the next descending arpeggio, which it's like a little key layer in D flat, or a tonicization of 5 of D flat, 5 of D flat, and then we have D. Then we hit a B flat. If we're following the pattern, this can become 5 of what key? B flat is 5 of E flat. And then we see. So if we're getting all the way out there to that C major chord at the end of the excerpt, there's a lot of ways of looking at this. Here's number 1. We can keep it all in C. Yes, Katie?
So we're talking about measure 12?
I am talking about, no, I'm on example B.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm on example B. So if you wanted to just use Roman numerals literally, not particularly functionally, but literally, you can say 5, 7, and then minor 1, and then flat 6. Then you can say flat 2, flat major 2, then flat major 7, flat major 3, 4, 7, minor 4, 7, 7 diminished 4, 2, 7 diminished of 5, 5, 1. Okay, so literally in C major you could invent all of those Roman numerals with their chromatic alterations. But now, if you want to do the same thing we just did and listen to sequences, you can also express it that way. Katie, did you have a question?
Okay, I have a question about the chord on the third beat of measure 172.
Yes?
What is?
It's a fully diminished,
What is that?
it's a fully diminished 7th chord built on F sharp. F sharp is a leading tone to what? G, and G is what in C major?
The fifth.
5. So this is a secondary diminished 7th chord, and the whole amalgamation of beats 3 and 4 in that measure really add up to that chord. So it's a 7 diminished 7 of 5.
See, I got that on the next chord, but I guess I just got thrown off
By the D up in the soprano?
Yes.
Yeah. Just think of that as a little suspension. It's like, okay, this is why I always, and not every, and I know there's been a request in here to see textbooks that are alternatives. I'm gathering them. I finally found, underneath a big stack of stuff, I found my textbook that goes, that is what they used to use. I'll bring that in and show it. I also found a copy of the Piston, Walter Piston harmony book that I had as a student years and years ago at the University of Utah. I found that. That has interesting things in it. And I've got another one on order to just show you some of these other alternatives if you're interested in as an alternative to the musician's guide, which is sometimes difficult to understand. As alternatives, if you wanted to put them on your shelves, I'll give you the information so you could add them. Yes?
Would we be buying them, or would you upload certain pages that correspond with what's on?
I'll have to think about that. I do want to be an obedient citizen when it comes to copyright law, but that may be fair, that much may be qualify as fair use. Just, you know, especially as we're into augmented sixth chords, Neapolitans, just those few subjects. Because, for example, knowing we're coming right up on augmented sixth chords, I looked in the piston and I said, well, I can't, because I couldn't remember how that had presented them, and frankly, the teacher that I had at the University of Utah didn't use that as the method of understanding them. But piston takes, and this will make more sense to you in the next 2 weeks when we're into this, piston's approach is that an augmented sixth chord is nothing more than an altered secondary dominant, which is a way of looking at them. So it's just interesting. When I first taught chromatic harmony, in other words, second year theory, when I was a brand new faculty member at the University of Central Arkansas, I had the sophomore theory class, and we just worked and worked and worked and worked on augmented sixth chords. And they finally said, what is this class? 101 ways to the augmented sixth chord? And I said, well, maybe. But I said, the more strategies you have for seeing them and identifying them, the better off you are. And I guess what I want to do is just equip you to stand on your own 2 feet and ask the right questions. That's really 90% of the battle in terms of trying to figure out harmonic analysis. It's being able to look at something and say, all right, if I take that at face value, it would be this. If I take that as a key layer, it would be this. If I, just have all these alternatives and then make a decision according to what looks most logical. Now, I've got to keep us moving here or we're going to run out of time on the Blackboard stuff. Can I stop right there? Well, I didn't really do it as thoroughly as I wanted to, but you could have those literal Roman numerals, or instead of just calling this flat 6, you could have a pivot chord. Flat 6 can become the 5 of D flat, so flat 2 becomes 1 in D flat, then D flat, which is flat major 7, can become 5 of E flat, and E flat then, instead of being flat major 3, becomes 1, but it's in an E flat layer. And then you can go right on, you can really go right on in C, because everything else from then on to the end of the example can be interpreted between C major, C minor. But, for example, if we call measure 171, if we say we're temporarily in an E flat layer, then the next one, this chord is 2, it's a 2-7 in E flat, and that can be a pivot chord, that can become a 4-7 in C, and then just go right on into C. So, very active, especially when you get to a composer like Beethoven, very active layer usage. It's the stuff that makes the music interesting. It isn't just, vanilla ice cream in C major. He's got, this is Rocky Road with pieces of fruit thrown in. It's a major pathway of interesting encounters. That's kind of how Beethoven works. and then, you know, it becomes even more ambiguous. Remember I said we could almost say, welcome to the world of ambiguity. I mean, we're there. We're at the door, we're through the door with these examples in the workshop. We passed through the door into it. Okay, so hang on. Just, you know, try to be relaxed about it mentally. Don't tie yourself into a knot, because we will get there, and the more you see it and the more you experience it, the less shocking or upsetting that it should be. Okay, now we really need to move on. Let's do 26.5A. We've got, we are, this is a figured face, so we're putting the upper voices and the Roman numeral. Looks fine to me. Everybody take a close look at that. I think that is well done. The only thing I would say, Katie, that this is yours, on the chord with the D flat in it, you need a slash through the circle, because this is a half diminished chord.
Oh, okay.
That's the only thing I can notice that seems to be missing there. We need a slash through the circle. Okay, now we did, right next to it, same thing. This is the chord. Who put this up? Okay, on the third chord of the first full measure, it asks for a flat. It asks for a flat 3. So you'd have to have a D flat in that chord. Other than that, I think that's fine, and having the D flat in the soprano there would also trigger a slash in the circle. You want to come over and fix that?
Yeah, sure.
Just so that what we have on the board is correct, as people are comparing. So you need a D flat in the soprano. Now, you got a little voice leading challenge there, as I see it. To go from A in the soprano to D flat. If we were singing this, you'd find people stumbling over that. That's going to be a difficult voice leading sing. So I would say, I might
Maybe flip these two?
yeah, so either the soprano's got to be different in the second chord. You could have C in the soprano in the second chord. And you could also in the tenor have A. But then we're doubling the third, so that's not terribly good doubling. Go back to what you had, double the C in the tenor. Nope,
Oh,
just
okay.
in the tenor. We gotta leave something. Well, the other way to fix it is this. That doesn't give you that, yeah, that's fine. You can fix that. Preferred for me would be, as your bass is ascending, what should your soprano do? Yeah, it should go in contrary motion. So something like this, a soprano like this. So if you brought the soprano down, in other words, you'd have to end up having your D flat in the tenor, and you could still have the F. So just switch your tenor and your soprano right there in the third chord. Put the D flat in the tenor. And the G in the soprano.
Which one, down here or up here?
Yeah, no, down,
Okay.
close together.
Well,
And,
minors doesn't.
and then, you know, just bring your soprano so it's going. So, no, G,
Right.
G. Put the soprano on G. And then put the soprano on F natural in the last bar, an octave lower. Just gotta take that again. Yes, and no, you can't have A in the soprano. F is
Well,
going to be in the
you
soprano.
can't go down to the F because then it's parallel unison with the alto, because the alto is playing the.
Well, we're not through fixing yet.
Okay,
But still parallel octaves with the tenor, also.
yeah, and there's parallel.
We're not
fifths here.
through fixing yet. So put an E in the alto there, in that next to last chord. E in the alto. Now let's fix the tenor. You're on D flat, let the tenor go to C. And your figured bass tells you to let the C then go to a D flat. And then would be on A. And then you could have alto on C. You could go down, you could go down, to get a full chord there, yes. Or you could leave the fifth out and just have tripled root and third there. You see what I'm saying? And this change made, you could bring in the first full bar, you could bring your soprano on the second beat, you could bring it down to A. See, if you really think about these voice leading rules and the idea of getting contrary motion between the bass and the upper voices, see that just really trying to do that fixed everything.
Mhm.
So now we've got. Now Katie did a little different. It's not appreciably different, but it is, you know, it is slightly different. But both are good, you know. And, all right, so let's move on to B. Oh, my goodness. All right. Key of E major. Oh, I'm sorry, it's gotta be an E major, so I gotta have an E sharp. And my favorite. Okay. Not bad, that's good. Now let's go to the, we have another one in E up here, so let's look at that. Okay, whose is this up on the front board?
that's mine. I just realized the parallelism there at the end.
Yeah, you got parallel fifths there, so how do we fix that? Come on up, we'll do some quick maneuvering here. So on that next to last note, take that tenor to an A. Okay, why don't we just put the F sharp let's see, let me think. Why don't we keep a common tone? keep a B. And maybe an F sharp there, yes. And this will really make us want to have a C in the soprano in the final chord. Okay, let's play that. Okay, not super ideal. Let's listen to the one we did just before. Yeah. Flat 6 is really pretty good. Let's see, in flat 6 you can triple the third of the chord because the third of the chord is also the strength of the key. So let's see what we So having an E in the soprano over there wouldn't have been bad either, so remember the doubling rule, strength of the chord or strength of the key, and this is a case where strength of the key, prevails over the idea that we should never double the third in a major key. Let's see, got one more to do there. Okay, I'm looking at the first chord. Whose is this? Okay, the first chord is supposed to be a G major chord, and you've got kind of. Okay, it's unique, but I think it's okay. Anyone see any issues? I'm having a pretty difficult time reading those Roman numerals from here, so please help me double check those.
I had a question about, so for doubling, so if the seventh is like flatted, then are we allowed to double it, or does the same like rule for leading tones apply with flatted seventh?
Well, in a seventh chord, I'd be precious hesitant to double the seventh. You got 4 tones in the chord, and if you're in 4-part writing, I'd be trying to use them all.
Well, it's just a regular like triad, but it's a seventh chord.
Okay, show me, point to what you're,
Chord with the F natural, A flat, and the C.
that's a minor 4. Oh no, let's see, in G major.
The minor, this is flat stuff, flat minor stuff.
Yeah, do we need to have a little modulation in there along the way? Because we start in G and we end in C. Here, Katie, head up. I want you to listen to this and follow me through this, because here's a prime example of what I was trying to tell you. Colin, is 4 a chord to end on?
No.
No. So something went awry there. If you want to make that into a 1, it'd have to be a layer in what layer?
C.
C. So somewhere along the way, you have to go into C. And I would say probably your pivot chord would be right there, the downbeat of the middle measure. 2 would become 6. And then you would go 4, 6. Let's see. Okay? And Katie, do you see how that hooks up to what we were saying? Yeah, okay. You just sometimes gotta look at what you've come up with when you do the literal Roman numeral descriptors, because Roman numerals can be literal descriptors. They can be, but you might have complete gobbledygook, you know, going in a string of Roman numerals that doesn't say one ding dang thing about what key you're in or what function a chord fulfills. You gotta always be seeking to get to the level of function. It's our 3 areas. 4 is not, if you think about our areas of harmonic function, 4 is never going to be in the area of repose. And if you're thinking about your goal of getting to the area of repose by the end of a piece, then it's like, whoops, okay, what else can that be? You know, is that a key layer in something else? Have we made a pivot chord back there and gotten into a different key? And then when you find the C major chord in front of the, and here is another place where your Roman numerals went astray. Your first line of Roman numerals, you had a 5, 6, 4 to 5, 3 going to 4.
Yeah, I just realized that.
That would have had to be, if you were literally using Roman numerals, that would have had to be a 5 of 4. And then the Roman numerals get odder and odder and odder as you go.
Quirky.
Good job.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Is everybody with me on this? Okay, well, I think it's ended up to be a good discussion today. And just please don't take anything at face value and start to develop a little checklist of questions you can ask when something looks odd. What else can that be? Enharmonic, key layer, sequence from something earlier on a different, harmonic level. Just start to think about those things. And then, when you're not in class and we're not explaining it as we go along, but you're on your own to try and do it, you've got a checklist of questions that you can ask. All right. Wednesday people, you got the checklist?
Yep.
Okay, thumbs up. All right, folks, have a safe weekend. We will see you next week. You've got the assignment list, know what to prepare for next Friday. And it's time for me to get another page of activities to you. But I think it's been good to do it this way because we've been able to really make these class activities responsive to where we are. But the adventure begins. It's already begun, but the adventure just gets wonderful next week as we do a Neapolitan and augmented 6.